Okay, so we are at number 9, and this is a slightly different task. What I'm envisioning here is that we know a certain conditional, or we know a certain if-then statement. That is actually a fairly common situation to be in, because frequently we know more conditionally than we know unconditionally. For instance, I might know that if there is a cat at the party, I will have a good time, without knowing for sure that there's going to be a cat at the party, and without knowing for sure that I'm going to have a good time. I might know that if he gets the job, he's going to have to move to Buffalo, without knowing for sure that he's going to get the job, and without knowing for sure that he's going to move to Buffalo, right? So sometimes the thing that we know is actually a conditional statement. So I'm imagining here that we know if lying is unethical, if lying is ethical rather, then we can rationally want everyone to lie. By the way, that's sort of from Immanuel Kant. Now, what I'm wondering is, suppose we then get a piece of information that we are going to imagine serving as our additional premise. And I'm wondering, what, if anything, could we be able to validly, the key word here is validly, infer once we get that new piece of information? So for instance, suppose I know that if there's a cat at the party, then I'm going to have a good time, and I walk in the door and I see that there's a cat there, and I think, yeah, I'm going to have a good time, right? That's a valid inference. Suppose that you know that if there's a cat at the party, then I will have a good time at the party. And suppose I come home or I meet you on the street and you say, hey, did you enjoy the party? And I say, no, I didn't have a good time at the party. You can validly infer that there was no cat there for me to entertain myself with while other people talked. So that's the task here. You got it? So if lie is ethical, then we can rationally want everyone to lie. We know that. Now we decide we can't want everyone to lie. We can't rationally want that. What, if anything, could we infer? Then we know we can rationally want everyone to lie. What, if anything, could we infer? Then we decide lying is unethical. What, if anything, could we infer? Then we decide lying is ethical. What, if anything, could we infer? You get it? So I will give you a moment, pause the video, think through those, think at least through, I tell you what, just do the first one. Just think through the first one, and then start the video again once you're done. Okay, so let's try this. We can't rationally want everyone to lie. I'm going to just make these not colored, so it's clear that we're talking about one. If lying is unethical, then we can rationally want everyone to lie. Now I'm imagining that we can't rationally want everyone to lie. Can I validly infer something from that? Well, how is this related to the conditional that we know? Is it the front? Is it the back? Is it the opposite of the front? Is it the opposite of the back? Looks like it's the opposite of the back, right? Is that going to be a valid inference? Can we validly infer something from that? Well, we can. It would be modus tollens, but if you're not sure, poodle dog it. This is going to be front, back, opposite of back, right? So if Max is a poodle, then Max is a dog. Max is not a dog. What can you infer validly? You can infer that Max is not a poodle. So same thing here. I can validly infer that lying is not ethical. So I'm going to write that. I'm going to put it in red so it shows that lying is not ethical, or lying is unethical. If lying is ethical, then we can rationally want everyone to lie, but we can't rationally want everyone to lie, opposite of the back. Therefore, lying is not ethical, opposite of the front. Got it? So now turn your attention to 2 and do the same thing for 2. Imagine that that statement is added as the missing premise to the same conditional. And what can you validly infer? Pause the video, think, come back. Okay, let's try. If lying is ethical, then we can rationally want everyone to lie. If front, then back. We can rationally want everyone to lie. Back. What can we validly infer? Well, what would that be? If front, then back, back. If Max is a poodle, then Max is a dog. Max is a dog. What can we infer? Can we infer that Max is a poodle? No, because there's lots of different kinds of dogs. So what conclusion, if any, can we validly infer? Nothing. This is that ability to say, okay, here is the conditional. What information would be useful for me to get? The opposite of the back is useful. Ding, ding. The back itself is not useful. By the way, I should pause here maybe to note that in this argument, I have imagined the conditional statement stated second. But when I think about the argument form in my head, I always think about it first because it's just easier. Even if the conditional statement is stated second, think about it first because that way it fits into the argument forms in your head slightly better. Very good. Now do the same thing for 3. Imagine that this statement is here. What, if anything, could we validly infer? Pause, think, and then start again. Start the video again. Okay, so what did you decide? If lying is ethical, then we can rationally want everyone to lie. Lying is unethical. So how does that relate to the if-then statement? Looks like it's the opposite of the front, right? Is that a promising thing? That is not a promising thing. That would be like if Max is a dog, then if Max is a poodle rather, then Max is a dog. Max is not a poodle. I don't know. I mean, what Max might be a dog, Max might not be a dog, right? If Max is a poodle, then Max is a dog. Max is not a poodle. I can't conclude anything. Might be a Chihuahua, might be a Siamese cat, might be anything. So I can not conclude anything from here. This would be adding the opposite of the front. That does not help us. Adding the front helps. Adding the opposite of the back helps. Adding the opposite of the front does not help. Good deal. So now we have this one. Imagine lying is ethical here. Ask yourself, would that make the inference valid, or could we validly infer something from that premise added to the conditional? Pause the video, think for a bit, and then start the video again when you're done. Okay, so what did you decide? If lying is ethical, front part, then we can rationally want everyone to lie, back part. Lying is ethical, front part. Aha, that works. We can then conclude the back part. We can conclude we can rationally want everyone to lie. There we go. So this is actually a really useful skill because, as I said, often we know things conditionally. If there will be a pet at the party of any sort, I will certainly have a good time. If he gets the job, he's going to have to move to Buffalo or wherever, right? We know those things. And so it's very useful to be able to recognize hopeful additional information that will allow us to validly infer things. And it's very useful to recognize information that looks like it's helpful, the back, the opposite of the front, but is not in fact helpful, and to resist the potentially very, very natural temptation to infer something under those circumstances. Okay, so next time, passage or number 10, and this is going to crank it up a little bit. So take a deep breath and on we go.